Hi, this is Farah, and this is Leading by Design, conversations related to design and leadership. The other day, I was reading a book, and there was a line in there that got me thinking. The line goes like this: everybody has a skills and expertise, but there is something that holds most of us back, and that's the fact that we are not bold enough. These days, to be successful, you got to be bold. It resonated with me, that line, and made me think. Of course, people might define someone who has bold characteristics differently. The way I define it is someone who is not scared to push boundaries, they take risk. They ask people opinions, but they are not scared to do something completely different. I don't see myself as a bold person. So I looked around to see if I know someone who I can go talk to and learn from. I didn't need to look too far. I have my friend here with me, Alissa Holder. Alissa is senior content designer in Bupa. Hi, Alissa, and thanks for being here with me.
Farah, thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure. Alisa, I know you for more than 2 years now, and I know you as a bold person. And I think that because I've seen how you decorated your house and how you dress sometimes, and it looks like dresses that comes out of fashion magazines. Do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Alissa Holder, and I've been working as a content designer for the last 6 or 7 years, I'd say. I started off in advertising, so I work in agencies as an account manager. And then sort of was doing a bit of content writing for my clients, and sometimes they'd send something through and it just didn't really feel like it fit the brand quite that well. So I think I slowly realized that I really enjoyed writing, and I guess that the strategic aspects of writing and content strategy. And then I was very lucky to get a role with Monash University, working as a senior media and web writer with them. And then I spent quite a few years working in universities in higher ed in kind of content and marketing and comms roles. I started with Australia Post as a content designer and content strategist in 2017. From there, I moved up and became a senior and became a lead. And then I was sort of poached by Sendel. So I was their content manager for a couple of years. And yeah, now I'm at Bupa, which is wonderful. I really enjoy the intersection between the creative aspects of being a writer and the really strategic parts of addressing business problems or customer needs. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about me.
That's pretty impressive. Thank you. Do you know yourself as a bold person?
It's a good question. I don't think until you and I spoke about doing this podcast that I'd actually really considered myself in that way at all. And I spoke to a few people in my life actually about what whether they agreed with you that I'm a bold person. So a friend of mine, Gabriel, she said, absolutely, she thinks that I'm a bold person because I'm not unafraid to take risks. And she said she doesn't see them as they're kind of calculated risks. And when I spoke to my mum, she said what she thinks is bold about me is that often I'll seek all the information and it will help me make up my mind. And sometimes I'll do exactly the opposite of what some of the people have said, and maybe that's because they're not quite as they're not wanting to sort of maybe take some of those risks, but whereas maybe I would a little bit more. It reminds me of a conversation that I had with my brother recently, because he said that he'd noticed that I'm not kind of shy or uncomfortable to be really vulnerable and honest with people. I'm not different with my family than I am with my friends or with a partner or with people at work. My old boss from Australia Post, Damien Rowett, he would call it as a soft skill. But I kind of think it's a bit of a superpower because I think that it encourages people to feel safe and, at work in particular. And I've always thought at work that, if I have a question or something that I don't understand, there might be like 5 other people on the call or in the room who are like, oh, I just don't get this bit. And if I understood this bit, it might make all the difference to this project or to the thing we're trying to solve. And so I've never been unafraid to ask questions at work because as a content designer, if we don't understand the problem and understand kind of all of the intricacies and how the product works or whatever it is, how can we possibly design a solution that addresses those problems?
That's interesting. Actually, you mentioned that you got to be vulnerable. And I think in leadership, in work, it's really important to be vulnerable, to let that guard down. It's always interesting for me how combination of different characteristics can lead to one important characteristic, like being bold is combination of being courageous, being vulnerable.
You know, remembering that your decisions are so much bigger for yourself than they are for anyone else. That a friend of mine, when she was studying her master's in psychology, so she's a psychologist now, and she called it shame training. So she would do things like she would sit on the train, and every time the train got into a platform, she'd yell out the name of the train station. So she'd be like East Richmond, and then they go to the next one or whatever, and she'd be like Burnley. And as she said, everyone was kind of at first like, whoa, what's wrong with her? But after a while, people just don't pay attention. Like they just, you know, everyone's so wrapped up in their own stuff. And I think remembering that people are much more wrapped up in their own stuff and being worried about how they come across, that really what you do to most people, it doesn't matter. So there's really no kind of, there's not that much risk in kind of, you know, just like making a decision and doing what you want. I mean, obviously you don't want to hurt anyone and you don't want to upset anyone. And so kind of trusting in yourself that you know what you want and that your decisions are right for you is really good.
That was a great story. I always think it's important not to care what people say a lot because we have an idea when we want to make a decision. We are like, what would people say? What would people think? And that was amazing to show that actually people don't care as much as we think they do. What do you think helped you with that way of thinking? Has anybody influenced you?
So I would say that I probably spent the first half of my life being a real people pleaser. And it's still a pattern that I can fall into easily. So that is, you know, something that can be hard to overcome. And honestly, I think a big part of it is just maturity and more experiences that kind of over time show you that when you are just being yourself, the people you find around you who accept you being just exactly as you are the right people and they will love you as you are. I've had some really strong women in my life who come to mind. And just like in all sorts of little ways that, you know, I think of after my parents broke up, I remember my mum putting together her own toolbox so that she could fix stuff around the house. And I'd really never seen a woman do that before. And I think it helped me because I realized that there was no reason to kind of wait around in life for other people to help you or to do the things that you wanted to do. I think my grandmother, like my dad's mum, is another one. So grandma was always incredibly strong and stoic and really had this presence about her that she was a real matriarch. Like she just when grandma was talking, everyone listened, and she was an Order of Australia recipient, so she was given this amazing award for her work with guides and with the CWA. When I think about that kind of stuff, I think that is also about I guess a bit of confidence and authenticity, and you just kind of do your own thing. Like there's so much fun and freedom in that.
It seems like you had a lot of powerful women around you who are independent, who take care of themselves, who are not scared to grab a tool and do something that they've never done before. And that's pretty powerful to have that role model next to you. How do you think being bold impacted your life and mainly your career?
I think a lot of the stuff in my life, you know, that has been impacted by being bold is sort of being unafraid to just go and do stuff myself that I want to do, and without approval from others. So I definitely would have had input and guidance, but probably not approval. So, you know, I decided that I wanted to study a master's because I wasn't learning as much in my job as I wanted to. And, you know, I've spent a year volunteering overseas in Samoa. I've bought a flat. I've changed careers. I've got myself out of debt. I bought a house. I'm doing IVF by myself. I walked the Camino. I walked an 800-kilometer walk last year by myself, and painting my kitchen and renovating my bathroom. Like those things, when I think about how it's impacted my career. And I actually did talk to my boss, my old boss, Damo. Tell me, can you think of a time at Australia Post when I was bold? And he said they would always throw me into a project that was particularly difficult, with stakeholders that were really difficult, where you kind of almost needed to charm them a little bit. He said he wanted someone who had the bravery to take the challenge on, to win over the stakeholders who were really skeptical of content design. So content designers, we constantly have to fight for the value of our work and why it matters, because everyone can write an email, everyone can write a text message. It can be quite difficult for people to understand the nuances of the work that we do, and what the value of it is. So in this work scenario, Damo says that, both Post Plus, which was one of the projects I was on, and Identity Services, they were kind of stakeholders that didn't really rate content at all. They didn't see the value in it. And they wanted me in there to influence and win these stakeholders over, and have them advocating for content. And that's exactly what I did.
Good on you.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. In our work as a product designer, one of the important skills to have is to be able to manage challenging stakeholders. And I realized a lot of it is your characteristic, how you create that relationship with them. Relationship is built, then they are willing to listen. So tell me, have you ever regretted taking a risk?
It's such an interesting question, because I don't think I've ever regretted taking a risk, but I think that some of the best lessons that I've learned is by making mistakes. So maybe you take a risk, it doesn't quite work out the way you thought it would, and then you learn from that. So I know that like we spoke before about painting my kitchen. Like I painted colors that a lot of people were like, whoa, that is very bright. And sometimes it does feel like you're inside a sunrise. But, doing that process, learned a lot as I went. The end result is really good. And it's taught me heaps about how to paint a kitchen. And I think you can apply that to anything in life, really, like not being afraid maybe for the thing to fail or to not be perfect. Yeah, maybe the product that you delivered at work, you wanted it to get to 100% right, but sometimes you have to ship a thing when it's at 70%, and then you test and learn.
That's actually interesting and great response. When you have that learning mindset, the fact that if I make mistake, that's not a big deal. I learned something from it. Makes you take that risk and learn from it,
That's
basically.
true. You move on to kind of whatever the next most scary thing is, and that the other scary thing seems tiny in comparison, and then you move on to the next scary thing, and both of those things seem tiny. The more you do it, the more you kind of get accustomed to that, like those scary feelings, the better you get at it. So maybe it is just practice.
Exactly. Practice
Yeah.
makes perfect. So what do you think the difference between brave and bold is?
When I think about being bold, I think it's taking a risk that maybe is more about yourself, and maybe being brave is more like an outward thing. Like when I think about bravery, it makes me think of like people going to war, or like knights fighting, or stuff like that, or like Bear Grylls or something like that. But I think maybe being bold is not quite so full on and out there. It's a bit more, maybe a bit more considered than bravery.
Do you have any tips on how you can be bold at work?
Yeah, I do. One of the things I often do, and I'm doing it right now, is I stand up. Things like important meetings, and even right now, or if I'm doing a job interview, or if I'm interviewing someone, I stand up, and and I kind of plant my feet a little bit apart. And I think that there's something kind of powerful in that stance, and it makes you feel more confident. So for me, when I think about times in life, like where I don't know, did a eulogy at my grandma's funeral, or spoke at my dad's wedding, or yeah, those kind of important things, I think standing up can make you feel like your feet are planted, and you're kind of you're sturdy and you're
They call it power poses.
totally, it's like
Yeah,
yoga.
yeah,
Yeah. Like those big
exactly.
kind of strong yoga poses. Yeah. I'm like a total believer in power dressing. I think it really works. Like a couple of shoulder pads, like makes you feel bigger and stronger, or whatever you kind of, and that will look different for everyone. So like my ultimate power dressing is, I think the shoes matter, even if people can't see them. But I've got this particular jumpsuit that I know looks awesome, and I love wearing it, and it's really comfortable, and the colors are really good, and I feel really confident in it. So if I've got something important, that's what I wear. Or I wear something green, or I wear blue, because I know I look really good in these colors. So I kind of pick stuff where I'm like, yeah, these are my colors. You don't have to be bold all the time. Like you can, it can. Some days you are, some days you're not. If I'm not feeling it, maybe that's like a camera off day for me. And it doesn't mean that I'm still not going to be adding to whatever we're doing at work. I still have lots of valuable knowledge and expertise to pass on, whether people can see me or not. Sometimes being bold maybe is also just protecting yourself and your energy, and knowing where and when to,
To use
to
it,
turn it, yeah, to use it.
align it. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So much, Alisa, for being with me today and sharing all the knowledge, all the great tips and tricks. I definitely take some on board and put it into practice at work and in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Um,
Power stance.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening. Follow us on LinkedIn and Spotify. Let us know if you know yourself as a bold person. If what's your definition of someone who has bold characteristic? Any comment about the topic we discussed today also welcomed. And bye till next time. Bye, bye, Alisa.
Bye.